Well, we will go ahead and get started then, Madam Chair. And Eddie, did you want to just briefly go over the new updated? I think it looks like everything's just been a new color.
It's in essence the same. There's kind of three changes that I'll highlight. One is that I did add the line denoting the kind of floor rate difference, so to speak, of 4.5% to 4% on the income tax rates. And of course, the privilege tax has their own kind of rate floor that corresponds to that in the two different chambers versions of that. That's down on SB 259, HB 2318. Another change is that I did add SB 227 to this. And then the final change is that in kind of that upper section, everything's been kind of lumped into one color, and that's greenish for bills in conference or pending. I decided I didn't want to have to reprint this every single time one of the chambers does a motion to non-concur or a motion to accede. And so this is really just to saving the reprint, and maybe even more than that, saving me having to keep track of when to reprint change as it relates to that. So now you've just got conference bills versus conference bull bills. But of course, note that the only two that actually have both chambers conferees appointed at this point are 2231 and 2275.
Thank you. And Madam Chair?
So thank you, and thank you, Eddie. May I ask for one request that you timestamp also?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Dates are wonderful.
Can add a time for the future. Yep.
Yeah.
If there are future editions of this, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I figured we'd probably get everything taken care of here, so. Okay, Madam Chair, I didn't know how you wanted to begin this. Do we want to identify some of our larger or top priorities and begin work on that, where we only have the two bills technically available? I think I did confirm with Eddie that we can go ahead and discuss kind of the contents of what we'd like to put in other bills at this time, but until we actually get the bills in conference, we wouldn't be able to take any action on those.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've done that in the past, and it seems to have worked fairly well. I know you've always mentioned too, kind of separating property sales income. We've been very consistent with that. So if you are okay with going forward as we've done it in the past, I'm fine with it. And I think the other conferees are too. We do have a new conferee, so I'm going to have to defer to him a little bit more often to make sure he's okay. Thank you.
I guess the first one I'd like to propose is actually the contents of House Bill 2318, excuse me. It is the income tax trigger. The House, as Eddie had said, made a few different changes versus what you saw in Senate Bill 259, but didn't know if we wanted to discuss that and where we would be with regards to those differences.
You know, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That sounds good, especially since both chambers passed the legislation. It looks like a good start.
Okay. Do you want to, I guess I'll make the offer and start off with the House position. That would be, as Eddie had said earlier, trimming that down from all SGF tax receipts to just income tax receipts. Instead of the 4.5 floor, it would be the 4% floor, and also including that budget stabilization fund at 20%.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me confer with our conferees for a minute. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we're negotiating and kind of going back and forth right now. So the Senate would accept your position on buying down income tax with income tax, excluding the sales tax, and the ceiling to the 4%. But we would like to strike the language on with those two provisions, accepting those, we would like to strike the budget stabilization fund requirement at 20%. So there would be no requirement on funds that are in reserve.
Okay. We'll talk about that for just a moment. Madam Chair. We've got some mixed feelings on this one. We want to stay pretty firm at that 20% for now. Just understanding that we want this to be able to take effect, but we also want some protections in there. I know the House, when we put that amendment on, that 20% was kind of an agreed upon compromise. People didn't want to get too far out ahead of our skis on that one. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and stick at the 20% right now, but let's go have some more conversations. We need to visit with some House members and leadership and see where we can end up on that.
So we surely appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. We'll come back to it.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay. Another one I wanted to offer, just because it's kind of what I think might be low-hanging fruit at this point. House Bill 2275, as it came over from the Senate, includes Finney County and Pawnee County sales tax authorities. I've visited with Eddie and Adam and Amelia just briefly ahead of this. If we bundle all of the local sales tax authority bills in there, I think we can put those in that bill. However, if we put them in a different bill, we might run into the bundling rule. I don't know if Adam or Amelia, if you guys want, or Eddie, if you want to flip a quarter and kind of explain, if we don't use 2275 as the vehicle for those local sales tax bills, what kind of ramifications do we run into?
Mr. Chair, in recent history, this conference committee has not run into this rule because it was provided an exception in the joint rules. But this year in the joint rules, this conference committee is bound by the joint rule that provides that no more than a total of 4 additional bills or parts of bills shall be included in a conference committee report.
So that does include, like, the underlying bill, even if it was completely unrelated, you can only add 4 other bill content?
That is correct. You know, It's the underlying bill plus 4. So if you would remove what would be 2275 and place it into another bill, essentially you would be only then, and assuming the underlying bill would be gutted, you would only then have 4 components to add to that bill. But since it's already in 2275, you can add 4 additional bills into 2275 to get a total of 5.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to make that decision at this point because it depends on what kind of vehicles we have and what kind of bills we have left, and there's consequences for, they wanted us to restrict, and so I'm going to play by those rules. But I also understand that we have priorities to get out of this conference committee. So I'm not going to make that commitment at this time, but I understand where you're going.
Right, and I wasn't proposing that we go ahead and use that, but we have right now 4 local sales tax authority bills, so technically we could do that unless you also wanted to include, I'm not sure if the Senate had a chance to take a look at House Bill 2377. That kind of freezes the apportionment in that general county sales tax. When we heard that in the House Tax Committee, we realized that formula actually penalizes local governments that want to reduce taxes. When they reduce their property taxes, that actually results in less sales tax revenue since it's based off of the tax levies. So it's not really the local sales tax authority, but it does kind of fit with those, and that would be that 5th bill that would not be able to be considered if we did try to bundle all these together.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And see, that is my point exactly. That is a very important issue that we do want cities and municipalities and counties to be able to lower their mill levy without these consequences. So to me, that would be a much higher priority. So we just need to make sure that we've got the vehicles. We'll have to make sure that we're comfortable if we do move on that legislation. I'm probably more aware of it. I had some discussions. We need to take a deeper dive, but a freeze would definitely help. And then take a look at it next year in order to change the equation itself. Yeah, so I understand where you're going, Mr. Chairman, but I definitely am not comfortable committing. We need to do a weighted matrix and put our priorities on the list. So, thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, is there any bills that you want to take a look at as priority for conference?
Mr. Chairman, the Senate definitely is interested in 2231, and I would put on your list also 2125. Of course, we would like to keep the contents of 269 also. I think those would definitely be. And, well, now that I'm reading the list, Senate Bill 35, the original contents in it too. So I think those would be the main ones for the Senate position. I know you guys passed some different legislation than we did, and we'd sure like to discuss it. We think you had some good ideas.
Certainly. And I would say the same thing regarding Senate Bill 10. There were some good provisions in that we did pass out of tax committee. We did not get that across the floor in the House, but I think there's some points of similarity in that bill that I would like to see. I know this is the second or third year we've addressed that, so it'd be nice to get some of those passed.
It would be wonderful to get that passed. I think the county appraisers would appreciate that since they're the one that originated the bill. And I know Senator Bowers and others would like to see Senate Bill 33, Senate substitute for 33. When we did the sales tax on the meat processing last year, we exempted it. But what happened is there's 2 places, and Amelia, you could talk to this better than I can, but there's 2 places in statute on the forms, and where we put it, it requires a form. So every customer has to fill out that form. And my local processing plants aren't too happy right now. The exemption's wonderful, but they've got stacks of paper that, and so we just thought it would be on your honor and make it so that form is not required. but you can still be prosecuted and investigated. So if you do not qualify and you're falsely claiming that sales tax exemption, you could be prosecuted. So it may not seem like much, but to our small processing plants, it's a big deal. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think the only other one that I wanted to call some attention to, and I'll apologize on the House side. I know we didn't get this passed over to the Senate very quickly, and it's a fairly large, very technical bill. But House Bill 2336, the single factor apportionment, we just passed that. We even had a floor amendment last week to further improve that. So that's one that I usually don't like asking for large things if the Senate tax has not had a chance to have a hearing on it and work through that. But I know we have worked on that bill for, I think this is the 4th year now, but would encourage you to take a look at that if that's something that you did feel comfortable moving forward with. We would appreciate some consideration for that bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll definitely take a look at it. And I just brought to my attention, I forgot about the Legal Tender Act. I know you guys did not have time because we didn't even get that bill until the last couple weeks. So I know it's a big policy change too, but if it was something that you would consider also. Yeah, I don't see any others on here, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Vice Chairman brought up Senate Bill 69, the Rural Opportunity Zone extension, if you guys would take a look at that language.
Looks like, was that more than just the extension? Looks like there was some additional qualifiers or some expansion on that too.
There was, so we definitely ask that you read through it.
Okay. Does that expire this year or is it next year? Do we know? Next year, okay. Are you on the floor at 2 o'clock? Or do you know what?
We are, but there's no action.
Okay. I think we've got some concurs, so we might,
Okay.
as soon as we're done here, we might
Break and-
have to break.
Okay. What time would you like to come back, Mr. Chairman?
I would say probably 3 o'clock would be workable. Do you guys have anything?
We need to get our ranking a priority as tax. He has a 3 and a 4, 3:30.
3 to 3:30. Can we do 4?
4. We're going to be up all night. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because if we don't finish these negotiations, then we will not be able to move on them.
We could try 2:30.
3:30?
We could try 2:30 if
Okay.
that's
Would that be, I don't mean to put more pressure on him.
right.
He needs some relief.
Everything's so fluid at this point in the game anyway, that's a little tough to predict. I know we've got some concurs, but I don't know how controversial they'll be. We could certainly shoot for 2:30.
That's fine, and it's tough when you're juggling one conference, let alone 3. So it's definitely understand. So we will try 2:30, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and adjourn now, and I'll follow up with staff on getting some questions answered and be back here at 2:30.